want to talk Ozzy for a minute to round this thing up, but I don't want to talk about it the way a lot of people cover it. My buddy Jay wrote a great piece on ordinary-times.com. I'll link to it because he's a little bit older than me. So he talked about growing old with Ozzy because he's a little older than me. You're a little bit younger than me.
Yes.
So my age group, late Gen X, right before the internet, that Ozzy was one of the three pillars that was going to send us to hell, along with MTV and Dungeons and Dragons and Ozzy. Those were the three that everybody said we were going to go to hell.
Yes.
And I just have found it fascinating, and I want to talk about it this way. The cultural touchstones of these things. Snoop hosts the Olympics. We talked about that the last time you were on here. Ozzy was beloved because Ozzy, for all the craziness and all the drugs and all the drinking and snorting lines of ants and peeing on the Alamo and all the insanity of it, and I tweeted this, and I was really shocked that I got any response on this, and people just blew my inbox up on it. He might be the most real rock star we've ever had. He was because it was all unvarnished, just him, and he didn't care, and he laid it all out there. And then you get to watch the reality show, and here's this Prince of Darkness rock god who's completely codependent on his wife to a pathetic level, but it's endearing how bad it is.
Yes.
And there wasn't an ounce of bitterness in that guy anywhere for any reason. He dropped F-bombs all the time, but not a one of them. It reminds me, it's the old Patrick O'Brien, because like unmeant swear words, he was the most relatable rock star of my lifetime for as big as he was. And that's the part I think a lot of people don't get it. I know you were joking about like it's Black Sabbath, you get it or you don't. That's the part I think people miss about Ozzy is like, no, he's so relatable as a human being. Watching him do, and we found out now, it came out the reporting that he stopped taking his meds so he could do the concert, and that's probably what sped this up. He was just the most real guy for somebody that's so over the top, out of this world, unbelievable. He connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, cards on the table. Like my dad, and my dad was the one who got me to Ozzy Osbourne. And to your point, like the fact, my mom, she was one of the people who thought that Ozzy was going to send me to hell. My dad loved Ozzy Osbourne, and I think that in and of itself is so telling, because it was like, when parents, I went to go see, I saw Ozzy Osbourne once, and that was at the Sunset Strip with my cousin David. And my cousin David was the delinquent. We all had that delinquent older cousin who lets you play violent video games, listen to heavy metal music and gangster rap. That was my cousin David. We went to go see, there was a Sunset Strip Music Festival. You can only see, it only cost $50 to go to the Sunset Strip Music Festival. And then Korn was playing, and then when Korn left, we went to the front, and then Ozzy Osbourne played for 30 minutes. And he was just like, and he just yelled, like, he's like, they say we got a curfew, but we're going to play a little bit longer. And there was this feeling that, to your point, with a lot of heavy metal musicians, there is an act, make no mistake, it was an act, the Count, Prince of Darkness stuff, biting the heads off bats, all that. But there was also the fact that you could tell when you were seeing him play live that he was having the time of his life doing it. That there was no other place he wanted to be except on that stage, giving every single ounce to the fans. And you listen to interviews with him, you listen, you watch the reality show to him, seeing how much it meant to him to know that when people walked away, they could say that was one of the best shows I've ever seen. And it was funny, again, me and my cousin, we go to the front at this show, and I'm just giving the throwback. We go to the front, and then what happens is all of a sudden when they do what Ozzy always does, is he plays like 3 or 4 Black Sabbath songs. He pulls out the fire hose at the beginning of War Pigs, and he sprays my cousin and I. So we're covered in foam. And then my buddy is also there, my buddy Jay, and then he throws a bucket of water. And it was just one of the, and that was one of those things where it was just like, wow, I just went to the Sunset Strip and I saw Ozzy Osbourne. How much more heavy metal could that get? And the thing that I said also is that the point about accessibility is, and one of the things I loved about Black Sabbath, and I think a lot of teenagers loved about Black Sabbath, is that those first few albums, you could if you had like a working knowledge of like 3 or 4 chords, you could teach yourself how to play those Black Sabbath chords, or your guitar teacher, or your bass teacher.
They're Beatles songs.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
he's like, Paranoid is a Beatles song with power chords. Go listen to the lyrics. He broke up with his girlfriend. That's
Yeah,
the song.
exactly. Yeah,
It's two lines, and his hero was Paul McCartney.
yes.
Ozzy's, they're Beatles songs. They're 3 chords and a bridge, but they just did the power chords, and Tony Iommi's a genius, and Geezer Butler doesn't get enough credit for those bass lines.
Yeah, or writing the
But that's
lyrics.
all it is. They just heavied it up. But it's a classic music modality.
Yes, and I think that was the thing, is that, so like, if you're I remember one time I got a magazine of like how to play all the Black Sabbath songs, and I was staying with my dad over the weekend, and then like I learned how to play Paranoid, and then that opening that lick, that dun 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 da 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 da, and then I overhear my dad up in his office saying, "Ooh, you're playing that," and that was like, and it was like, oh, that's cool, like that was a universal thing. And I think that, again, to the point was that, like, you could tell he was a fan. You could tell he loved the music. He loved the act. He loved the fact that he got to do this. And in his later years, again, to the point that, like, I think the suburban, the sitcom dad, the reality TV show, we forget now, because, I mean, our president is a former reality television star. But, like, the idea of a rock and roll star opening up his home and opening up his family to you in that way with Ozzy was so unprecedented, almost to the extent that every other celebrity reality show kind of ripped off from the Osbournes, and was not nearly as, because they learned the mistakes, they learned the lessons, they fine-tune it, they do it with every television show and every formula. Everything else was way too varnished. But, like, he talked about his addiction. He talked about his kids' addiction. He talked about, the tattoos and all these other things, and like the dogs and the animals. And it was almost, you realize, oh, this guy isn't, the son of Satan. He's just a bloke from Birmingham who got lucky and, invented this incredible genre of music. And, he's kind of letting you in. And I think, again, that was the point, is that he was unafraid to show his fans who he was, all of it, everyone, every last bit of it. And it kind of, and then you almost kind of, and especially when he would talk about kicking his addictions, dealing with addictions, you almost kind of had to, at the end of the day, respect how open he was about, yeah, I was this guy, and I'm trying hard to be a better person. And I think that was the other part of it, was his willingness to talk about, yeah, this sobriety thing is really hard.
And Bubbles.
Yes,
because
and Bubbles.
he's the one of the greatest reality clips ever. If you've never seen it, go find it, where Sharon's doing the new tours. He's like, I'm Ozzy effing Osbourne. I'm the Prince of effing Darkness. I can't have effing Bubbles.
I can't have Bubbles. It's one of the funniest things. Yes, like, go back, go on YouTube, folks. It's on YouTube now. Like, where he's just yelling about Bubbles. So.
And the ongoing war with the cats and dogs. That's the other thing I remember from the show. And remember, kids, this is pre-social media as we know it. This is I think it overlapped the iPhone a little bit, but the way, like, this was not when everybody was putting everything on video. So it was one of the best of the reality shows as we know the genre. I think that's
it was, and again, a lot of it was schlock. Like, I mean, and again, to the point about, like, Snoop hosting the Olympics, like, he's probably one of the only cultural touchstones, because, like, I remember at one point in 2002, he was invited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and George Bush made jokes about it, and it was kind of,
he got up on the table.
Yes,
he's like, Ozzy. Bush is like, calm down, Ozzy.
yes, and so, like, it was one of those. It was, I have my thoughts about the Correspondents' Dinner, and I've said them many times. But like, that was almost kind of like where he became like this cultural touchstone. And again, like, when I went to go see Ozzy in 2009, God, I can't believe it was that long ago. Yeah, you had teenagers in Black Sabbath tees and tattoos and things like that, but you also had dads taking their teenage sons, teenage daughters, and you had parents taking their kids to go see it, and to the point where it was almost like, it wasn't, what are you doing taking your kids to go see Ozzy Osbourne? It's like, oh yeah, parent bonding. You're taking your kids you're now taking your kid to go see Ozzy Osbourne. So yeah, like, that was kind of how the shift happened.
Yeah, to quote Jay's piece that he wrote today, and I'll link to that one too. And I'm going to link to your political beats conversation on it. I hate to call it a podcast because they were doing that before people were podcasting, that thing. But the political beats you did on Ozzy was really fun too. So we'll link that. But that's what Jay said. He's like, you got to understand, by the time you get to No More Tears, Ozzy's adult contemporary.
Yes.
And then my Ozzy album, because of my age, was really Osmosis.
Yes.
That's the one like that was in my wheelhouse of whatever, teenage age I was, but that was my Ozzy album because that's the age I was when it came out, and the Perry Mason track and all the Zakk Wylde stuff. And if you've never heard the story of Zakk Wylde in the studio with Ozzy, where he threatened everybody, he's like, you're not doing this to the old man. We're going to get some good songs. You're not going to embarrass him. Ozzy was so protected by everybody around him, starting with Sharon and everybody else. And we know the Sharon mess and the Randy Rose, and I don't want to rehash that because who cares now. But his family loved, everybody loved. Like if you go watch the Birmingham concert from 2 weeks ago,
yes,
like everybody loved him, and everybody worked with him because everybody's like, oh yeah, he'd take us on tour and then hang out with us for an hour and tell us how to do shows.
Yes, yeah. There's a great story when James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich inducted Black Sabbath into the Hall of Fame, where Metallica would, during their sound checks, they would play Black Sabbath songs, and they were opening for Ozzy. And this is like Pink Metallica, Master of Puppets, they were opening for Ozzy Osbourne. And they just so desperately wanted Ozzy to come on stage with them to play Sabbath songs.
Yeah, they were baiting him.
Yeah, they were baiting him. And he thought initially they were making fun of him. And then later he realized, oh, this is what they wanted to do. And like they had to Sharon had put him on a really strict regimen, like where he couldn't drink, and then he would go drink with the Metallica guys. So it was again, that was kind of the fun thing, is that you realize, oh, he was, and I say this as in the highest compliment is that he was, in every sense of the word, a bloke from Birmingham. And you got the feeling that had he not met Iommi and Butler and Bill Ward, he would have easily been another guy at the corner end of the pub with his name scrawled on his knuckles, telling you stories. And that was almost kind of the appeal, because like, and I said this on social media, it was like with Robert Plant, Robert Plant was a great singer. Roger Daltrey was like a Greek god in so many ways. The Who was my first concert, just to background. Bon Scott was clever, he was sly, he was all these things. Mick Jagger was sexy as hell. You felt like you could be in a band without, like, if that guy could do it and he could write such great songs, and he could be, you felt like, okay, I can go with my mates and form a band and become the biggest thing in the world, So, in many ways, it's not a coincidence that he was so close with Lemmy, because Lemmy wasn't the greatest quote unquote vocalist, but he was friggin' Lemmy Kilmister. So, and it was the same deal with Ozzy.
Yeah. And if you've never read the story of how Black Sabbath got, Tony Iommi was Ozzy's bully in school.
Yes.
And then Ozzy ended up, I think he got arrested for burglary or something. And then they all hooked up and they're like, well, we got to do something different, or we're going to be here forever at the corner. And that was kind of the start of it. And then Tony Iommi started doing bands, and then he's like, all right, this isn't working, I'm going to go get Ozzy. And they mended fence. It's just such a wonderful, and then you watch these two old men, and Ozzy with the Parkinson's in the chair. I'm at the age, and with my own medical stuff, anytime somebody guts it out like that, I just admire it. Like, no, we're not going to hide it. We're not going to, no, I'm going to strap it up, and it's going to be 40% of what it used to be, but I'm going to do this one more time for you.
Yeah.
See, now I'm going to get messy just talking about it. But that kind of a human arc for those two guys, and then Tommy's the last guy standing, and he's got to do the eulogy now for Ozzy.
Yeah,
exactly. And we just saw them, and now we see them as old men. I mean, I'm older than you, and I'm more decrepit than you, so I think about mortality a lot more than you, because you're still this superstar guy. But that stuff's meaningful to me, and I think it's important to have it in media, because again, we're in the fakest media era ever, and Ozzy was never fake. Yeah, they edited the reality show, but that was all him, man. He didn't care if you saw the warts. He wanted you to see them.
Yeah, exactly. So many people are carefully curated. So many people, especially with social media now, where you can, literally curate what you want people to see on your Instagram filters or your TikToks or your whatever. that the fact that he was on, that he was willing, as you said, to be in that chair and show who he was and give that like just one final performance. I mean, the thing it was so emotional. I mean, I think even for me, it was, and like I recognize that like I know this is not going to be what I what I would have hoped it would be, but like, or what I remember it being, but the amount of respect that I had that he was willing to like buck up and do it one last time and give, literally empty the tank one last time. I think that shows. And then you looked at the crowd and the audience, like you would see the live feeds, just the amount of
they were there to help. They weren't there for a show. They were there to help.
Yes,
they're
exactly.
like, we're going to get you through this. It was beautiful.
Yes, exactly. And seeing like literally every heavy metal musician and their mother being there. Tom Morello, Sammy Hagar, Metallica, all of them just being there was beautiful, was incredible. Judas Priest,
Oh yeah, Halford's awesome. All right,